The first scream was not human. It came slicing through the white silence like a blade, high and long and raw. Not the cry of a person in pain, but something older, more primal. Then the snow moved. Nora slammed her boots into the brake as the truck slid to a sideways stop at the edge of the timberline. The engine died coughing, and still, she heard it again, that sound. She opened the door slowly, heart thudding, breath already fogging in the sharp winter air. Across the snowfield, near the black ridge of spruce trees, something strange was happening. A shape, low to the ground, was heaving forward through the drifts, and behind it, trailing in a half-moon arc like a wounded memory, was a wooden crib. She stepped down from the cab without thinking, the crunch beneath her feet too loud in a place this still. "No," she whispered, voice trembling with a disbelief that hadn't yet settled into fear. "That can't be." It was a dog, not just any dog. The white shepherd from Harlan's property. The same one the deputy had sworn was mute from trauma. The same dog that hadn't moved a muscle when they'd brought out the body bags last winter, but now it was moving frantic, possessed, its fur clotted with blood and frost, dragging the old crib through the snow by a knotted length of rope tied to its neck. The slats of the crib were cracked and splintered, rocking with every jolt, and something inside it shifted, ever so slightly, like a bundle of blankets breathing. Nora's feet began to move before her mind caught up. She didn't call out. She knew better. Her training told her not to spook a dog in distress, especially not one carrying something precious or dangerous, but nothing in her years as a ranger had prepared her for this. She reached the edge of the field just as the dog paused. It turned to face her with eyes that were not wild but ancient, as if it had carried something for too long, as if it had waited for someone to take the weight away. Double quotes, "Nora, do not go near it." The voice came from behind. Gravel, slow, lined, with warnings she didn't have to turn to know it was Sam. He was the last of the old mountain warden's half legend, half recluse. She'd called him 2 days ago about strange track patterns in the western gorge. He hadn't answered then. Now he stood there like he'd never left, wrapped in a coat stitched from a different decade, rifle strapped to his shoulder, eyes locked on the dog like he'd seen this before. "What do you mean, don't go near it?" she asked, not taking her eyes off the trembling crib. "Because it's not running from you," he said flatly. "It's running from something that was following it." Nora's pulse stumbled. What was following it? He said nothing, only stepped forward and knelt into the snow, pressing a palm to the powdery ground. Then he brushed it aside like a curtain, revealing what had been hidden beneath the untouched white prints. Not paw prints, not hooves, something else. Each indentation looked like a human foot, bare, long but wrong, splayed toes, deep heel marks, huge in more than one set. They ran along the edge of the timberline in a wide circle, as if something had been pacing. The dog growled, low and guttural. Its entire body stiffened. The wind shifted and carried a new scent, iron ash, something sweet and rotten. Nora took a step back. Then the crib creaked. She rushed forward before Sam could stop her, fell to her knees beside it, and pulled back the tattered blanket. A baby, pale, unmoving but warm, breathing, alive. Her chest caved with the force of emotion that had no name yet. She looked up at the shepherd, tears already blurring the edges of her sight. "Where did you take this child from?" she asked, her voice breaking. "What were you running from?" The dog lowered its head, as if apologizing. Then it turned sharply toward the woods again, eyes fixed on a shadow between the trees. It didn't growl this time. It whimpered. Sam stepped forward, his hand now resting on the rifle. "We have to go," he said. "Now." "But the baby, you don't understand," he snapped, not cruel but urgent. "It's not just a dog running from something. That animal's protecting something. And whatever it stole this child from, that doesn't let go." The wind howled, and for a moment, the forest answered back, not with words, but with a presence. Nora stood, clutching the baby, heart thundering against her ribs. The dog circled her once, then barked its first sound in over a year and took off toward the dark pines, not fleeing this time, but leading. And so they followed it, into the ancient woods, with the snow falling heavier now, and the silence behind them beginning to shift. The trail narrowed quickly as they entered the forest, swallowed by the dense undergrowth and the long arms of spruce trees. Bowing heavy with snow, Nora kept one arm wrapped around the baby, the other stretched out to brush branches aside. Every few steps she glanced back, half expecting the timberline to vanish behind her like a closing mouth. The air in these woods was different, older somehow, colder even beneath the canopy. Time felt slower here, like each breath took longer to fall away. The dog ran ahead, pausing only to glance back with those haunted eyes. Sam kept close behind Nora, his breath harsh in the frozen silence. He hadn't spoken since they left the clearing, but she could feel his presence like a second heartbeat, steady, protective, grim. The weight of the baby in her arms seemed to grow with each step, not just physical, but symbolic. There was no road back, only forward, deeper into whatever story the dog had dragged them into. "How is she?" Sam finally asked. "Warm," Nora whispered, brushing a thumb across the baby's brow. "She's warm, but she hasn't made a sound." Sam's eyes flicked to the treetops, to the shifting shadows above. "Don't be too eager for her to cry. Silence is what's kept her alive." That line dug deep. Nora didn't ask what he meant. Instead, she focused on the sound of their movement, the crunch of snow, the rhythm of breath, the faint creak of the crib still dragging behind the dog. It left a crooked trail, like a story written in desperation. She tried to shake the thought that this was not a rescue, but an inheritance. Something passed on unwillingly from creature to man. They broke through into a small hollow, half-frozen creek running through it like a black vein. The dog stopped, ears pricked forward. Then it growled not at something ahead, but at the water itself. "What's wrong with it?" Nora asked. Sam knelt by the creek, examining the ice. It was thin, cracked in a perfect semicircle. Blood bloomed faintly beneath the surface. Not a recent wound, not animal, something had been pulled through. "This place," Sam muttered, "it's part of the old stories. Before the town, before roads." The Newcomb, the grandmother, spoke of it in riddles, called it the mouth that forgets. Things come here to vanish. Nora shifted the baby in her arms, feeling the unease settle in her bones like frostbite. And now the baby's been taken from it, which means something else has been left behind. The dog gave a sudden bark, sharp and urgent, then sprinted across the clearing toward a rise in the terrain. Without thinking, Nora followed. Her breath snagged in her throat as they crested the slope. Beyond it, hidden between two cliff faces, stood the burnt remains of a cabin. Half its walls had collapsed inward, and the roof had long since given up to snow and wind. Charred wood jutted from the earth like ribs, and there, at the center of the wreckage, lay another crib. This one was blackened and empty. Sam swore under his breath. "This is Harlan's old place," he said. "They never cleared it. No one wanted to touch it. Harlan ... Nora's voice cracked. "That was the fire. The family that disappeared. All except the dog." He turned to look at the shepherd, who now stood perfectly still at the edge of the ruins. Its hackles were up, not in fear but in defiance, guarding, waiting. Nora moved cautiously toward the crib in the cabin remains. It was identical to the one the dog had dragged, same carving on the rail, same woven blanket, only here it was fused into the wood by flame. She knelt and reached into the ash. There was something beneath it, a photograph, half-burned. She brushed it clean. A woman, young, unsmiling, standing in front of this very cabin, holding a child. Behind her a shadow, not a person, just the shape of one. A tall blur in the doorway, too long-limbed, too still, like the photograph had caught something that didn't belong in this world. Nora stood slowly. "This was never just a fire, was it?" "No," Sam said. "It was a binding." The wind picked up, and from the trees behind them, a sound emerged, long and low and wet. Not a roar, a sigh, as if the forest had taken a breath. The baby stirred in Nora's arms for the first time. Not a cry, just a soft sound, like the beginning of one. Her eyes fluttered open, pale gray, unfocused. But then, she looked past Nora toward the ruins and smiled. It was wrong, not because the smile was too early or misplaced, but because the expression didn't belong on a baby's face. It was too knowing, too old. Nora backed away instinctively. Sam stepped between her and the crib. Whatever this child was taken from, it wasn't human. Not fully. "She's a baby," Nora snapped, forcing her voice to stay level, though her arms trembled. "I can feel her heartbeat." "That's not what I'm saying." He turned to her, expression stone serious. "I think the dog stole her back. Not from a monster, from a deal gone wrong, and now something wants to collect the debt." Behind them, the snow fell harder, and for the first time the baby let out a sound, a soft whimper. The ground beneath their feet vibrated, not from movement but sound, rising through the roots, ancient and bitter and patient. Nora met Sam's eyes. "What do we do?" He didn't answer at first. Then, with terrifying certainty, "We give it what it wants." The dog barked once loud, and Angrion took its place beside Nora. Refusing, resisting, choosing, and suddenly, Nora realized this wasn't just a shepherd. It was a witness, a guardian, a being that had waited for someone to believe what no one else dared speak. Something ancient was coming to collect. But not if they could find its name first, and bury it deeper than even the snow dared go. The wind began to carry voices. Not loud, not clear, just fragments that danced on the gusts like smoke. Nora turned, eyes scanning the black timberline, but nothing moved. Still, the sound pressed in. Whispers without origin, names not spoken in years, lullabies sung in a language she didn't know she remembered. Sam stood motionless beside the crib's charred remains, his hand resting just above his rifle. He hadn't spoken in minutes, and Nora knew better than to break the silence. The dog sat beside her, chest rising in tight, shallow breaths, its ears flicking nervously at sounds only it could fully hear. The baby was awake now, tucked close to her chest, but no longer smiling. Her eyes were open and wide, watching the world like someone expecting it to fall apart. Nora had thought the fire-blackened cabin was the end of the story. It wasn't. There was something buried here beneath the snow, beneath the years, a history that had never been written down because the people who knew it had refused to speak it aloud. And now it was rising again, through roots and memory and blood. "The names," Sam muttered. We were warned never to say their names. What names? Nora asked, clutching the baby tighter. What are you talking about? Sam didn't answer. He knelt again beside the old crib, digging deeper now. Not in panic, but with grim determination. His fingers struck something hard, a metal box half melted, fused to the foundation of the cabin. He pried it loose with a grunt and opened it slowly. Inside, wrapped in cracked oilcloth, was a book, not thick, hand-stitched, weathered, no title. Just the faint imprint of a symbol on the cover, a circle with 4 teeth. Like a mouth, or a trap. He opened it, thumbing quickly through pages smeared with soot and age. Every one of them was filled with sketches and symbols, charcoal drawings of creatures twisted into human shapes, cribs, trees, mouths. At the center of the book was a list of names, each one marked with a line through it except the last. Nora's breath hitched when she read it. Ira Harlan, taken, returned. That was his daughter, Sam said quietly. Born during the fire. They said she didn't make it, but the dog, it never left, stayed in those woods for years until now. Nora stepped back instinctively, her eyes flicking down to the baby in her arms. No, she said under her breath, shaking her head. That's not possible. But the baby didn't blink, just stared back with those unfathomable eyes. And when she blinked finally, Nora saw it, a flicker like a second set of lids moving the wrong way. She almost dropped her. She's not possessed, Sam said, voice low. She's marked. Nora wanted to scream at him, at the absurdity of it, at the cruelty. But she knew, deep in her bones, she knew this wasn't a myth, not anymore. This was something older than religion, and deeper than belief. It was a bargain, written in grief and sealed in flame. The dog barked suddenly, sharp and furious, and turned toward the woods again. But this time, it didn't run. It lowered its head and growled. The forest was shifting. Snow slid from high. Branches, shadows thickened unnaturally. The ground under their feet seemed to breathe. And then, from the trees, a figure emerged, not walking, gliding. Its shape was wrong, not a creature, not a person. Just the suggestion of one. Tall, almost elegant, wrapped in something that moved like smoke, but held the color of rotted bark. Its face was veiled. Or maybe it had no face at all. Behind it, the trees bent in silent submission, their trunks groaning under invisible pressure. Nora couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Her legs were stone, her thoughts ice. The figure stopped at the edge of the clearing and waited. Sam closed the book gently and stepped forward, holding it out in both hands. We know what you took, he said, voice trembling but loud. We know the name Ira. You left a trace, and the child lives. The figure tilted, as if curious. Then it raised a hand, long gnarled fingers tapering into points, and reached forward. It didn't speak, but they all heard it. Returned the mark to the baby, stirred and let out a soft cry for the first time since she'd picked her up. Nora felt the infant's weight shift, not like a human baby, but something heavier, denser. The flesh was warm, but under her touch it felt wrong. Her heart twisted violently. She looked down at the child's face and saw a tear roll down its cheek, but it didn't cry out. Not for help, not for her. The wind stopped. The clearing held its breath. I can't, Nora whispered, voice cracking under the weight of the choice. She's just a baby. She's a bridge, Sam said quietly. And if she stays here, whatever came for her, it stays. 2. The dog stepped between Nora and the creature now, growling louder, defiant. And then it did something neither of them expected. It lunged forward, not at the figure but at the ground, with teeth bared. It tore through the snow, through the soft rot of earth beneath it, until it uncovered a hollow nest of bones and cloth, and in the center, a small doll, hand-stitched and burned, with a face that matched the baby exactly. Nora stared, realization hitting like a hammer. This wasn't the child the creature had come for, it was the likeness. The thing in her arms was never meant to return. It was the vessel left behind, a decoy, a substitute placed to appease something unspeakable. And now, because of the dog, it had failed. The forest screamed, branches whipped in all directions. The creature surged forward, with impossible speed, but before it reached them, Sam raised the book high and shouted something in a language Nora didn't recognize. The pages burst into flame. Light exploded through the clearing. The baby screamed finally, fully, and the sound was human, raw, real, terrified. The creature recoiled, arms flailing. Its form shimmered, dissolved at the edges. The forest groaned in protest, as if losing a part of itself. Then, silence. The wind returned. The snow fell gently again. The creature was gone. Nora collapsed to her knees, clutching the baby close. The dog lay down beside her, tail still, ears twitching. Sam stood quietly, the last page of the book smoldering in his hand. It's not over, he said. And somehow Nora knew he was right, because the mark wasn't gone. It was only waiting to be passed on. The light didn't fade. It collapsed. The moment the creature vanished, the blaze from the burning book pulled itself inward, folding into a pinprick of heat before sputtering out entirely. Smoke curled in spirals, then vanished into the still air like it had never belonged. Nora was left blinking against the darkness that remained, colder now, sharper, like something unseen was waiting just beyond reach. She didn't move right away. The baby had stopped crying but remained tense, her tiny body curled tight against Nora's chest, muscles stiff, breath shallow. The child's warmth no longer felt threatening, it felt borrowed, like something had almost claimed her and failed. But Nora's arms didn't relax. She couldn't bring herself to let go, not yet. Sam stood nearby, silent, staring into the empty place where the thing had stood. His face was unreadable. Years of mountain storms and long winters had carved him into something half stone, half memory, but now even he seemed lost. The burnt remnants of the book smoldered in the snow beside him, its pages nothing more than ash filigree. The mark is still there, he muttered, more to himself than to Nora. Burning the vessel doesn't break the contract, it just delays the collection. Nora turned her gaze toward the spot where the dog had unearthed the doll. The stitched face stared up through half-melted frost, eerily similar to the baby now pressed against her. A placeholder, a talisman, or maybe a trick. Her stomach twisted. Then what are we supposed to do, she asked. If we stopped it for now, what stops it from coming again tonight, next season, next generation? Sam didn't answer immediately. He crouched beside the hole the dog had dug, pulled the doll from its shallow grave, and held it up. One of its eyes was missing, the cloth around its neck scorched and brittle, but something glittered beneath it, a small copper disc stitched into the back like a coin embedded in a wound. He cut it free with his knife. It was stamped with the same symbol that had been burned into the book's cover, the circle with 4 teeth. This, he said quietly, is the seal. Not the child, not the name. This is what bound the deal. Whoever placed this did so willingly. That means the contract wasn't just old, it was invited. Nora recoiled slightly. You're saying Harlan asked for that thing to come? Sam looked at the disc, turning it in the fading light. Maybe not for it, but for something. Survival, healing, protection. People don't always understand the price when they ask for the impossible. He tossed the disc into the snow, where it hissed and disappeared beneath the surface. Nora shivered. The dog barked once, low and hoarse, then began to pace in wide circles around the hollow. Its body stayed low to the ground, alert but not afraid, watching something they couldn't see. Then, almost casually, it stopped and looked back at Nora. And started walking. Not toward the woods, not toward the truck. Deeper. Into the gorge. Sam stiffened. No, he said, voice thin. No, he wants us to follow. Nora stood slowly. Her knees ached, her arms numb from holding the baby so long, but she didn't hesitate. Then, we follow. Sam turned to her sharply. You don't understand. That gorge, it's older than anything mapped. My father used to say it was where the earth forgot what it meant to live. Things go in, sounds don't come out. Even birds won't fly over it. Nora's eyes were fixed on the dog's retreating shape, and yet he came out of it dragging a child. She stepped forward. Sam hesitated for one heartbeat longer, then followed. They descended through the trees as the light thinned around them, the sky darkening with the onset of twilight. What sun remained slanted in narrow beams, barely reaching the frozen ground. The forest here grew tangled and close, with trunks so old they bent under the weight of their own rings. No trail, no path. Only the dog, trotting steadily ahead, that led them to the edge of a gash in the earthen, impossible chasm, wide and black and silent. Wind didn't move through it. Sound didn't echo from it. It was not a place, it was a wound. The dog paused at the rim, then sat, tail curled around its body. Waiting. Sam stepped beside Nora and stared into the gorge. It's deeper than any map ever recorded. I came here once with my grandfather. He called it Atamacel, the root of memory. He said it was where names were born and where names came to die. Nora tightened her grip on the baby. You think this is where they made the deal? No, Sam said softly. I think this is where they buried the truth. He took a breath and stepped closer to the edge. For a long moment, he didn't speak. Then he reached into his coat and pulled something from his pocket, a pendant, old silver, worn nearly smooth with time. He turned to her. This was my grandmother's. She said it could protect what wanted to stay human. He pressed it into Nora's hand and nodded toward the baby. She has a choice, he said, but only if we take her into the place where the lie began. Only if we show her what she isn't, what she isn't. Nora stared at the gorge, her thoughts a blur of dread and certainty. She looked at the baby, who gazed back with quiet, unnatural calm. Then she looked at the dog, faithful, waiting, unflinching. We go down, she said, and so they did. The dog rose and led the way into the shadow, into the gorge where no sound, if lived in behind them. The world held its breath again, because if the child was truly marked, then something was still watching, and it had not given up. The descent into the gorge felt like falling through time. The snow thinned as they moved deeper, replaced by frost-slick stone and roots so gnarled they seemed to breathe. The dog led them without hesitation, weaving through ancient outcroppings and narrow ledges like it knew this path by memory or instinct. Behind it, Nora followed with the baby still bundled in her coat, and Sam bringing up the rear, his boots steady, his eyes scanning the walls like they might whisper if he listened long enough. Light faded quickly. The air grew heavier, as if the gorge pulled weight from the sky. There was no bird song, no wind, not even the hush of snowfall. Only breath and footsteps and the sound of the baby's heartbeat against Nora's chest. She clung to that rhythm, like it was the only real thing left in the world. Eventually, the path ended in a natural basin, a place carved by something older than water. Stone walls rose around them in a perfect oval. In the center stood a monolith, weathered in black, etched with symbols worn down by centuries. Around its base were small offerings, bones wrapped in cloth, broken antlers, rusted trinkets, and tiny carved figures with stitched mouths. No one had been here in years, yet it didn't feel abandoned. It felt attended to, watched. The dog stopped at the edge of the circle and lay down silently. Nora stepped forward, slowly, cautiously, and knelt beside the monolith. She unwrapped the child. The baby looked around calmly, unafraid, eyes wide. Her gaze settled on the stone, and for the first time, her mouth opened not in fear, but in wonder. A sound escaped her lips, a low hum, soft and tonal, like a song, remembered from another life. Sam approached behind her, the pendant still clutched in his hand. "This is it," he said quietly. "This is where she must choose." Nora turned to him. "She's just a baby." "She's not," he said gently. "Not entirely. You felt it. So has the dog. She's more than what we see. But she's still new enough to change, if she's shown how." Nora looked down at the child again. There was something ancient in her eyes, yes, but also something fragile, something unformed. And for the first time since this nightmare began, Nora felt a flicker of hope. Maybe the mark wasn't a curse. Maybe it was a scar left from someone else's desperation. A bruise passed down through generations, mistaken for inheritance. She reached up and placed the pendant around the baby's neck. That silver caught the dim light and pulsed faintly, as if recognizing the weight it now carried. The baby looked down at it, touched it with one soft hand and blinked down. Slowly her lips moved. No sound came, but it wasn't needed. The hum in the air shifted. The stone pulsed once, and the space around them felt lighter, less burdened. From the walls of the basin, faint shapes began to appear, ghostly outlines of children, of mothers, of the ones who had come before. Not angry, not accusing, just watching. Some reached for the monolith, some wept, others simply nodded. And then they faded. The wind returned, gently this time. A breeze, soft and warm, sweeping through the gorge like breath after long suffocation. Sam dropped to one knee, his eyes glistening. "It's done." Nora felt the baby shift in her arms and looked down in time to see the child young, just a baby again. Sleepy, whole human. She stood, holding the child close, and turned back toward the path. The dog rose too, padding silently to her side. Together they climbed, leaving the stone and its watchers behind. As they reached the lip of the gorge, the sun broke through the clouds above, catching on the snow and filling the world with light. They stood at the top for a long while, breathing. Sam spoke without turning. "You could leave the child with me. I'll take her to the reservation. The elders can." "No," Nora said softly. "She stays with me." Sam didn't argue, just nodded. Once. The dog looked up at her, then at the baby, and wagged its tail once before trotting off into the woods. No leash, no command. Its purpose had been fulfilled. Back at the truck, Nora strapped the baby in gently, hands still trembling. As she closed the door, she looked once more at the tree line, at the road ahead, and at the vast, quiet wilderness behind them. So much of what she thought she understood about the world had changed in a single night. But she didn't feel broken. It felt anchored. Felt anchored. As they drove away, the snow began to fall again, soft and slow. Not heavy this time. Cleansing, the storm had passed. Whatever had been chasing them had not followed. It had lost its grip, and somewhere behind them, deep in the gorge, a name was finally forgotten. The child slept, and Nora kept driving. Not from something, but toward something better. Toward a life she would now build with the child she had chosen. A child born from ruin but saved by love that asked for nothing in return. Not fate, not prophecy. Just choice. The oldest magic of all.